So the second issue is about how to publish included studies to Central. And I wanted to take just a few minutes to demo that, just to show you a couple of the options that you've got, or maybe just one of the options you've got, because there's lots of different ways you can get your records into Central, and there's lots of shortcuts that you can use to find which ones are not in Central. So I'm just going to flip over to the development version of CRS Web. I hope everybody can see that. If you can't, then put your hands up. So this is the version that is not live yet. It'll be live on Monday. There's a few things that you can do to find the records that are included studies but not in Central. One way that you can do it is to go through the tracking screen. So if you look at the tracking screen, that will pull your records from your reviews from Archie. And from within there, you can see on the tracking screen for each individual review, we've got protocols in here as well. Let's just hide the protocols. For each individual review, it tells you how many of the references in the included section are not in Central. So if you wanted to go through and look at those on an individual basis, you could just click on the arrow to open the individual sections, look at the included studies, and that will show you in the included studies list here. We've got 9. It tells us we've got 9 studies, and these are the 9 studies. And for each of those 9 studies, it tells you how many references within that study is not in Central. So if what you want to do is to go through and look in detail at each of those in the context of the review that they're in, then this would be the obvious way to do it. I should say this: we're in the dementia groups register here, but this is very old dummy data, so that this is not a reflection on Anna's register in any way. We use the dummy data from different groups, and we manipulate it and take stuff out and put stuff in, just to illustrate points. So this is not real data. It's entirely possible that these are, however, correctly not in Central. So what we haven't done is put in place a mechanism that would enable you to just say, publish all the included studies that are not in Central to Central, because I think that would be too dangerous to do, and we'd end up getting things in Central that really shouldn't be there. If you're going down this route, then it's really simple to work through it. So we would look at the Forsberg study. We click on the study. Over here we can see the listing of the records that are not in Central. If you click on any one of those, so this at the moment gives us the study data. So we've clicked on Forsberg, and it's telling us that these are the only fields that we have about this study, and that's because it came from a review, so we know the study name and the year and an ID. If you click on the actual reference itself, then just the fields down the bottom change to the reference fields. So you might want to look at the abstract or the title or whatever's in there. If, as you're going through, you decide that a reference should be in Central, then you just click Add to Central. If you've looked at it and you're pretty sure it should never be in Central for good reasons, then you would just click Not for Central. And if you do that, it doesn't come back. So it never comes back next time you look and says that, should this be in Central? You've already made that decision. It's dealt with. It's gone. So you only have to do that once. The CRS has recognized that this record is actually not in the dementia groups register either, so at this point you get the option to add it to the register, or if you know that you never want it in your register, then you can just click Not for Register. So it's kind of a one-off classification of items specifically from the included studies section that you can make decisions about as to whether they go into Central or not. That's, I think, the way that most people would work, particularly for new reviews. There isn't really a shortcut to being able to find the ones that should or should not be in Central, because they're kind of judged. I mean, if it's an included study, then you would naturally think that it's definitely a candidate for Central, but the CRS doesn't have any way of knowing whether it is or it's not, except in those circumstances where you've gone through and you've got other fields that would enable you to do a search and find the records that you particularly wanted to exclude or include from Central. A second way of doing it is if you're not going to go through all of the individual reviews. The second way of doing it is, yeah, go ahead.
Gordon.
Yeah.
There is just a note of caution, and I think for new reviews, this is a great tool, particularly for the older ones where maybe the quality of the references isn't as good or they're in an old format. You can often find that these aren't studies that you references that you don't have in your register and in Central, duplicates, and they haven't matched because they've got 5 authors and then et al, or there's a number of factors that mean that it's not matched up. And when you're going through this list, particularly if you're looking at older ones, it's probably worth thinking about whether a reference is a duplicate before you add it, so you don't inadvertently add a duplicate. But I think probably we can mention ways around that when Gordon goes on to show you the other method for adding included studies to Central.
Okay, thanks, Sam. What I was going to show was just a quick search that would find all of the records for you, and you've got several ways that you can do that. You can restrict your records to a particular section of a review. So you could, if you wanted to find all of the records in the included section of reviews, you could restrict the search to that, and you could generate a fairly, I'm guessing you could generate a fairly complex search strategy that would enable you to pick the records that you wanted. There is a shorthand, so you can search for included, not in Central. So there's a keyword that you can use which is included, not in Central. If you search for included, not in Central, what that will do is just do that shorthand search for you. So that will find all of the references that are attached to included studies in reviews in your group that are not in Central. So essentially what we've done is bypassed the tracking screen and pulled all of those records out. So you could refine that list further if you've got keywords that you wanted to use. You could deduplicate that list. You could order that list by title and eyeball it. Essentially, it's a set of records. What you could also do, of course, is to drop those records into a folder and work through so that you can work through them bit by bit, or you could drop them into the triage screen and categorize them as for Central or not for Central, so screen them basically within the triage screen within CRS Web. So essentially it gives you a list of records that you might want to work through. If we work through them here, if you're going to go through them one by one, if anybody isn't already doing this, let's just close that and give us a bit more space. So if we were going through them one by one, you could just step through each record. You can see that they're not in Central because there's no color coding on the number bar here. Okay, so here's an obvious one. So the first one wouldn't be for Central because it doesn't have a title. The second one looks as though it might well be for Central because it's a randomized clinical trial. So we haven't read the rest of it. There might be a reason why it's not in Central. If you wanted to add that to Central, then you just click the Central button here. That would publish that record to Central, change the color coding on the bar to show you that it's in Central. It's dark orange, which means it's got your tag on it, and that's all you would need to do. At the same time, sorry, go ahead, Sam.
Oh, sorry, Gordon. I was just sort of saying, and as always, when you're publishing to Central, it's important to check the quality of that record. So against the harmonizer guidance that's embedded in the record. So here, there's an obvious example of the string of authors truncates at 6 authors with et al. That doesn't meet the harmonizer guidance, and you would need to correct that before you published it to Central.
And that might actually be a reason why this one hasn't been sent to Central. I mean, it might be one that's in, at the time we harvested the records was in progress, and they were aware that it needed some work before it went. But whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it could be.
There's all sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
But it's a good discipline to always check that before you click the central button,
yeah,
and particularly
good point.
with those references that come from reviews.
And while you were here, you might well decide that it should be in your register as well, and I would have guessed that anything that was in an included section probably would be in your register, depending on how you work. But if you want to put it in your register and you're not familiar with how to do it, then that's it. You just click the register button here. That's now put that record into your register, and it's put the purple color bar on the left-hand side to flag it. So next time you see it in a listing, you'll know that it's in Central because it's orange, and it's in your register because it's purple.
I've got a question from Ina. There are only the colour orange and white. Ina, I'm going to unmute you so you can ask your question. Go ahead. I'm not sure Ina can speak. The problem is I'm not quite sure what the question means. Do you know, Gordon?
Let me just open it up. Sorry, I was on a different screen. Hang on.
Sure. Yeah, Ina doesn't have a microphone.
She doesn't have a microphone. Gotcha. Yeah, okay.
But
No, I can't see the question, sorry. Where is
the question is, there are only the colour orange and white, question mark?
No. So, okay, if I understand the question correctly, there are several different, well, there's not many, I think there's about 4. So white means that the record is not in Central. Orange means a dark orange. Let me see if I can find some examples. So, yep, there we go. So a dark orange, so 2, 3, and 4, mean that it's in Central and it has your group's SR tag on it. So this would have SR dementia on it. A light orange means it's in Central, but it does not have your group tag on it. So this one would be, we see this Central field. Yeah, so this has got it's behavioural medicine, complementary medicine, and whatever health P is. I don't know what group that is.
Probably.
Public health, of course. Yeah, public health. So it's in Central. It's appeared because it's in the dementia group segment, but it's something that's they've deemed to be not. It's not appropriate for them to have their SR tag on it in Central. So that's orange, light orange, salmon, whatever colour you want to call it. The purple bar is on the left-hand side. So I can't find a record, so I'll just add one. Yeah, so the purple bar would be on the left-hand side here if it's in your register, and there is another color coding which is essentially it's a diagonal orange and white, which indicates that a record has been flagged for not for Central. So that if you click that button that says no, this should never go into Central, then you'll get a flag on that. So that means that you don't have to go and look at those records again. Did that answer the question, Nina?
Yes, she said it did.
Cool, great. Were there any others?
Showing people on my point about the guidance being available in the record, so when you are publishing to Central, you can quickly check your record against the harmonised guidance.
You mean here, Sam? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're not familiar with the harmonizer guidance, or you just want to go back and check that you've got something right, you can just click on the guidance button at the top of the record. If I make the record full screen, you'll see better. And what that does is open up in the left-hand column here a brief summary of what the harmonizer guidance is for each field. So it makes the record much bigger, of course, to view on the screen, but it does show you what you should put in and what you should not put in. So that's quite a useful thing to be able to do. It's off by default, but you can just turn it on and off as you want.